23 videos, 23 farms, 23 families with land and barns and root cellars and windmills and linen looms and beehives and masonry heaters. And if you have watched all of them from a studio apartment in Chicago or a rented house in Atlanta or a condo in Phoenix, with a balcony the size of a parking space, you have been patient through every video wondering the same thing. What about me? This video is for you. Not as an afterthought, not as a consolation prize, as the video I have been most careful about because the answer to your situation is more specific and more actionable. And the answer comes from a source you would not expect. Because the Amish who do not have land are not Amish farmers who failed. They are young Amish adults between the age of leaving their parents' household and establishing their own farm. They are Amish families that have moved to urban and peri-urban areas to work in trades and manufacturing. They are the Amish equivalent of the renter and the apartment dweller, and the Amish community has developed a complete and specific body of practice for maintaining the system principles in the absence of land. That body of practice is what this video is about. Not approximations, but specific techniques they use when they have no land. The specific economic value those techniques produce, even in a 600-square-foot apartment with a north-facing window and a landlord who forbids modifications. Let me start with the number that frames the video correctly. The $1.3 million lifetime savings calculation is based on the complete rural system. If you have no land, you cannot achieve the full $1.3 million. But the calculation is not all or nothing. Each system is independent. Each system that you can implement produces its own return on its own investment on its own timeline. The question for the person without land is, what components are accessible in your specific situation, and what do they save? The answer, for the average renter in the average American city, is approximately $150,000 over 30 years, $150,000 from a rented apartment, without a loom or a windmill or a cow, from the biological and knowledge components of the system that the Amish maintain, regardless of whether they have land. Let me show you the specific components and the specific numbers. Fermentation. I described this in video 7. A mason jar, salt, cabbage, thyme. Total setup cost, the price of a mason jar and a head of cabbage. The fermentation practice does not require land, a root cellar, a garden, or any landlord permission. It requires a countertop and a dark cabinet. The probiotics, vitamin K2, and enzyme content provided are available in a studio kitchen as completely as in a farmhouse. The grocery savings from replacing commercial fermented products run approximately $30 to $50 per month. Over 30 years, $10,800 to $18,000, from 20 minutes of work per week. Mushroom cultivation. Growing in a rental apartment is possible without any outdoor space at all. Oyster mushrooms will grow on pasteurized straw or coffee grounds in a plastic bag in a closet. A 5-gallon bucket of free coffee grounds produces 1 to 2 pounds of fresh mushrooms per flush. Total cost per cycle, $5 to $10. Total production value at retail, $15 to $25. The natural medicine cabinet, raw honey, herb tinctures, propolis, elderberry syrup, and apple cider vinegar. Every item is producible in a rental kitchen without any property modification. The tinctures require dried herbs and vodka. Total cost per 4-ounce bottle, $6 to $8. The savings against equivalent commercial supplements, approximately $90 per month for the average adult. Container gardening. Even restrictive rentals typically permit containers on a balcony, windowsill, or patio. A south-facing window can produce a continuous supply of leafy greens and herbs through most of the year. A dedicated balcony gardener with 12 to 20 containers can produce $60 to $120 per month. Over 30 years, $10,800 to $21,600. Self-sufficiency starts here. Worm composting. An indoor worm bin, approximately 2 feet by 2 feet by 1 foot, processes kitchen scraps including vegetable trimmings, coffee grounds, paper, and cardboard, into worm castings that are the highest quality soil amendment available for container gardening. The bin produces no odor when properly managed. It requires no outdoor space. It is legal in virtually every rental property. because it is functionally a compost bin that happens to be housed indoors. Total setup cost, $30 for a storage tote. Total ongoing cost, $0. The castings produced from household kitchen scraps supply all the soil amendment needs for a balcony container garden, eliminating the need to purchase potting mix. Seed saving. Every tomato you eat contains seeds. Every pepper, every squash, every herb that goes to seed produces next year's planting supply. The seed-saving practice is not land-dependent. It is observation-dependent and record-dependent. Seed-saving eliminates the annual seed purchase that most container gardeners make in spring. Total annual seed purchase eliminated, $30 to $60 per year. Over 30 years, $900 to $1,800. Trivial in isolation. Part of a pattern of maintaining knowledge. Energy efficiency measures. The radiant barrier foil can be applied as a temporary window film in a rental without any permanent modification. Reflective window film reduces solar heat gain through the glass in summer, reducing the load on the building's cooling system. Total cost, $30 to $50 per window. Cooling cost reduction, 15 to 25%. Over 30 years, bonus $500 to $4,500. This saving compounds alongside other simple changes like LED lighting conversion. Replacing incandescent bulbs with LED bulbs reduces lighting electricity consumption by 80%. Annual electricity savings, $80 to $150 with a payback period of approximately 1 year. The knowledge practice. In a rental context, the family book is about attention. What you record in an apartment is different from what you record on a farm. Record which fermentation batches produce the best flavor. Record which container varieties performed best in your specific window exposure, and which community networks you are building. You record the knowledge that will be more valuable when you eventually have land, because you will arrive already practiced in the observation habits that make land productive. The renter who starts the book today will arrive at their first piece of owned land with a decade of records. That renter is not starting from scratch. They arrive with the knowledge base that generations of farmers arrived with. The conditions are different. The practice of observation, record, and transmission is the same. Now I want to describe the specific Amish urban and peri-urban practice that I found documented in the community records of the New Order Amish congregations. In Lancaster County, members work in trades and manufacturing. The community developed specific guidance for maintaining the household system. In non-farm contexts, this system is more complete than anything I have found in any urban homesteading or small space gardening publication. The Amish peri-urban household maintains the fermentation practice universally. Every household, regardless of size, maintains at minimum a sauerkraut culture and an apple cider vinegar mother. These are considered the minimum biological household assets. The biological continuity of those cultures, maintained across moves, represents participation in the community's biological knowledge system. The Amish peri-urban household maintains the community network. Participation in the mutual aid system is not contingent on land ownership or farm operation. A family renting in a Lancaster suburb participates in labor exchanges and skill shares the same way the farm family does. Their contribution is their skills and time. The exchange is identical in principle to the foundation of the Amish economic system. The financial savings from fermentation and container gardening are real, but the social savings from building the community network are in a category that financial calculation undersells. The Surgeon General of the United States issued an advisory in 2023 titled, "Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. Social disconnection is a public health crisis producing mortality effects comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. Lonely people die younger. Disconnected people experience higher rates of cardiovascular disease and depression." The Surgeon General estimated healthcare costs from loneliness at $6.7 billion per year. The Amish Community Network is not a healthcare intervention. It is what human social organization looks like when not disrupted by industrial consumer society. The 300 families who show up when the barn burns are living in the conditions that human social biology evolved in. The health outcomes research documents lower rates of heart disease and depression. They are produced by belonging, purpose, and reciprocity. These social conditions are not land-dependent. They are practice-dependent. The renter who shares their fermentation culture or participates in the community garden is building those same biological and social conditions. They are moving in the same direction, producing the same health outcomes the Amish research documents. Not with the same intensity, but in the same direction. The Amish renter in Lancaster who is working as a cabinet maker and renting a room is not waiting for land to start building their life. They are building it now. The practices are the life. The land, when it comes, is the amplifier. But the practices that the land amplifies are the ones already running in the rented room. That is the video for the person without land. Not a smaller version of the complete system. The foundational version. The practices that will be amplified by the land when it arrives are producing returns on their own merits in the apartment right now. The Amish peri-urban household maintains the knowledge practice. The family book continues regardless of address. What is recorded changes with the circumstances. The fermentation records, the community network, the supplement practice, the observations of the local environment will eventually inform a family book entry about the specific urban microclimate's characteristics. The practice of observation is not paused because the observation is of a balcony container garden rather than a 40-acre farm. The Amish peri-urban household maintains the food production practice at the scale available. A rented row house with a small backyard has more land than the peri-urban Amish family typically occupies. A community garden plot, available in most American cities, provides growing space equivalent to a substantial container garden setup. The intensive permanent bed techniques are directly applicable to a community garden plot without modification. A 15 by 20 foot community garden plot, managed with Amish principles, produces approximately $800 to $1,500 in annual food value. I want to describe what a community garden plot managed on Amish principles looks like versus a standard community garden plot. The difference in productivity is dramatic and explained by biological management techniques rather than by space, sun, or soil. A standard plot managed conventionally produces $400 to $700 in value. A plot using intensive permanent beds produces $1,200 to $2,000. 3 times the production from the same plot, with less purchased fertilizer after the first year of establishment. The community garden plot also serves as a mutual aid network. It is the introduction. The person managing the adjacent plot notices yours produces more. The conversation begins. The knowledge is shared. The fermentation culture crosses the garden gate. The tool is borrowed and returned. The network begins to form. The community garden is not just growing space. It is the seed of the neighborhood network that the Amish call the church district. It is what everyone else calls community, which the industrial system has been replacing with subscription services and delivery apps. The tool library concept, which I described in video 16 as the Amish community's shared equipment model, has a specific urban equivalent. It is worth describing here because it is more developed in American cities than most people in this audience probably realize. The Neighborhood Tool Library is a community organization that maintains a shared inventory of tools for short-term use in exchange for modest membership fees. Fees are typically $50 to $100 per year. Organizations like the West Seattle Tool Library maintain inventories of several thousand tools. A membership provides access to drills, saws, soil testing equipment, food preservation equipment, and fermentation vessels that the average household rarely uses. The annual savings against purchasing equivalent equipment, $200 to $500 per year. Over 30 years, that is $6,000 to $15,000. Urban foraging demonstrates the Amish principle of maintaining a relationship with what the land provides, regardless of whether you own the land. Urban environments contain enormous quantities of edible and medicinal plants that are generally ignored or treated as aesthetic problems by city infrastructure. Dandelion is one of the most nutritionally complete wild plants. Its leaves are higher in beta-carotene than carrots, and higher in iron than spinach. Every lawn in America is full of it, yet most are sprayed with herbicide to remove it. Elderberry grows wild along streams and disturbed edges. A single forager can supply their household's immune tonic needs for the year. The identification takes 20 minutes to learn. The harvest takes 2 hours. The production value is up to $120 per year. Black walnuts, hickory nuts, pawpaws, persimmons, and serviceberries grow in vacant lots and along the edges of urban infrastructure throughout the country. The urban equivalent of a farm is the neighborhood green space mapped by someone with the knowledge to identify what is growing there. The knowledge to identify wild edible plants is learnable. It requires a good field guide, initial mentorship, and practice. Practice means spending time in green spaces with the book in hand, until the knowledge moves from the book to the body. Young Amish adults in transition maintain these system practices during the years when they have neither land nor complete household independence. This is the closest analog to your situation right now, temporarily without land, but preparing the knowledge for when the circumstances allow it. In Amish communities, the period between leaving the parent's household and establishing a farm of one's own is typically 5 to 10 years. During this period, young adults work in trades, in community businesses, in agriculture for wages. They live in rented rooms or in community housing. They do not have land, they do not have barns. They do not have their own beehives or root cellars. What they have is the practice. The fermentation culture started in the parents' kitchen that they carry with them in a sealed jar when they move to a rented room. The family book that they begin adding their own entries to from the first day on their own. The community network that they participate in as workers and skill contributors before they can participate as landowners. Amish elders describe this as the foundation building phase where practices become fully one's own rather than one's parents'. The first batch that succeeds without anyone checking is the moment the knowledge moves from inherited to owned. That is the video for the person without land, not a consolation prize. The foundation building phase, the signal before the scale. You are not behind. You are at the beginning of the foundation building phase. Start the book. Start the jar. Start the worm bin. Start the foraging practice. These are the foundation. The land, if it comes, will be built on them. If it does not, the foundation produces value from a rental apartment. Either way, the practice produces. Either way, the knowledge compounds. Either way, the Tuesday keeps coming. The return is the knowledge passed to children who pass it to their children, who are still adding entries to the book. Drop in the comments where you are starting from. The apartment, the rental house, the room. Tell me your constraint. The person in a north-facing studio apartment can implement 4 systems: fermentation, the medicine cabinet, the worm bin, and the knowledge practice. Start wherever you are. The path goes the same direction from every starting point. Fermentation savings versus commercial equivalents, $10,800 to $18,000. Medicine cabinet savings versus commercial supplements and remedies, $32,400. Windowsill herb production value, approximately $300 to $600 per year in fresh herbs that would otherwise be purchased at grocery store prices. Over 30 years, $4,500 to $9,000. LED conversion savings, $2,400 to $4,500. Urban foraging value for households that develop this practice, $500 to $1,000 per year in food and medicine value. Over 30 years, $7,500 to $15,000. Total savings from the accessible systems in the most constrained rental context, $57,600 to $78,900 over 30 years, $57,000 to $79,000. From a north-facing studio apartment. Without a garden, without a balcony, without land, without a lease modification, without a landlord's permission for anything beyond the LED bulb replacement. From biological and knowledge practices that fit in a kitchen cabinet, a closet shelf, a corner of the bathroom, and a notebook on the bedside table. The Amish family in Lancaster County does not know you are in that studio apartment. They are maintaining their Tuesday, but the principles they are maintaining on the farm are the same principles available to you in the apartment. The fermentation culture does not require a root cellar to be alive. The elderberry syrup does not require a garden to be effective. The worm castings do not require a barn floor to be biologically active. The family book does not require 100 acres to be worth keeping. The land is the amplifier. The principles are the signal. The amplifier multiplies what the signal produces, but the signal is operating wherever the practice is maintained, on 400 acres in Holmes County or in a 400-square-foot studio in Chicago. The only difference is the scale of the amplification. Start the 4. Today, the jar, the tincture, the worm bin, the notebook. Those 4 practices are the signal. Every piece of land you eventually acquire is the amplifier that multiplies what you have already been practicing. The Lancaster County family started with the practices. The land came later. The practices were already running when the land arrived. Your book starts today. Your 4 practices start this weekend. The amplifier will come when it comes. The signal is ready now. Drop in the comments where you are starting from. Tell me your specific constraint, because the next video is going to address the transition from no land to first land. The path exists. Some started exactly where you are.